Somewhere right now, someone is dying. And somewhere in a hospital corridor, a waiting room, a bedroom at 3 a.m., someone who loves them is holding on to one thought, that this isn't the end, that somewhere, somehow, something better is waiting. This idea that beyond death there is a place of beauty, peace, and reunion is the single most widely shared belief in the history of the human race. It crosses every continent, every language, every century. And yet when you actually look at what different traditions describe when they say heaven, the differences are extraordinary, almost shocking. Some heavens are physical, lush gardens with rivers of honey, thrones of gold, fruit that never runs out. Some heavens are entirely spiritual, a light so overwhelming that everything else, your name, your history, your desires dissolves into it like salt in the ocean. Some heavens are earned through faith alone, some through deeds alone, some through a combination so precise it requires a divine accountant to calculate. Some cannot be earned at all, they are given freely to whoever is chosen. And some traditions quietly, carefully suggest that heaven might not be a destination you arrive at, it might be something you become. Today we go through every major tradition, every description of paradise, every map of what perfect existence looks like. And at the end, the question that all of it is actually building toward: what does what we imagine in heaven tell us about what we're missing on earth? Let's find out. Ancient Egypt, the Field of Reeds. The oldest detailed vision of heaven in recorded history comes from ancient Egypt, and it is profoundly, almost movingly human. The Egyptian paradise was called Aru, the Field of Reeds, and it looked exactly like Egypt. Not a transcendent spiritual realm, not an abstract union with the divine. The Field of Reeds was the Nile Delta, but perfect. Wheat that grew taller than anywhere on earth. A river that never flooded destructively and never ran dry. Light without scorching heat, abundance without labor. Everything that made Egypt beautiful, without everything that made it hard. The Egyptian vision of paradise tells you exactly what the Egyptians suffered. Drought, flood, famine, taxation, brutal physical labor under the sun. Heaven was the same world, cleaned of its cruelties, but getting there was extraordinarily complex. The weighing of the heart. The 42 confessions, the duat, journey, the passwords and spells, and once there, even in paradise, the gods might call on you for work. Which is why wealthy Egyptians were buried with Ushapti figurines, servant dolls who would answer for them if divine labor was required. The Egyptians loved paradise enough to hire staff for it. There was also a higher Paradise Sekhet Aru in its most sacred form, where the soul merged with Ra, the sun god, traveling with him on the solar bark through the sky each day and through the underworld each night. Not rest, but participation in the cosmic work of keeping the universe alive. The Egyptian heaven says, perfection is not the absence of the world you know. It is the world you know, finally working the way it should. Ancient Greece, Elysium, and the Isles of the Blessed. The Greek paradise is one of the most famous and one of the most exclusive. Elysium, sometimes called the Elysian Fields, was not for everyone. It was not even for most heroes. It was for the specifically chosen, those who were loved by the gods, those whose heroism was exceptional, and those who achieved the remarkable feat of living 3 complete, virtuous lives and being judged pure in all 3. For ordinary souls, and even for many heroes, the destination was the gray asphodel meadows. Not punishment, but not paradise either. Elysium was the exception. And it was genuinely extraordinary. The texts describe it as a place of perfect climate, no harsh cold, no burning heat, soft breezes from the ocean, golden flowers. The heroes there feasted, competed in games, made music, and enjoyed all the pleasures they had loved in life, without the consequences. At the very center was the island of the blessed, the Makaron Nisoi, reserved for those who had completed the full cycle of 3 virtuous lives. Here the greatest of the great resided in complete, permanent joy. What the Greek heaven reveals, Its exclusivity is honest in a way that is almost uncomfortable. Not everyone gets there. Most people, by definition, were ordinary, and ordinary was not enough for Elysium. The Greeks believed that excellence required a destination commensurate with it, a universe in which the greatest heroes and the most mediocre farmers arrived at the same paradise would be, to the Greek mind, a universe without justice. But it also created a category that haunts the tradition, the person who lived virtuously but without fame, without divine connection, without heroic deeds. Where did they go? The asphodel meadows, gray and purposeless. The Greek heaven is beautiful, and it is honest about the fact that beauty, in the Greek world, was never equally distributed. Zoroastrianism, the house of song. Zoroastrianism, which gave the world its first fully developed apocalypse and dramatically shaped the Abrahamic afterlife traditions, also gave the world one of the most morally rigorous heavens in any religion. The Zoroastrian paradise is called Gorothman, the house of song, or sometimes Wahisht best existence. It is reached, as we discussed in our apocalypse video, by crossing the Chinvat Bridge. And the figure that meets you on the bridge is not a judge from outside. It is your own conscience, made visible. Your good deeds in the form of a beautiful young woman, or your evil deeds as an old hag. In the house of song, the righteous exist in the presence of Ahura Mazda himself, in light, in truth, in perfect harmony. The description is less physically specific than Egypt or Islam, but more morally charged. You are there because you chose good over evil throughout your life. Your presence is the direct result of your choices. What makes Zoroastrian heaven distinctive? It ends the war. After the final purification of the world at the end of time, even the souls in hell are brought to the house of song. Evil is annihilated. The wicked are purified. And every soul that ever lived finally, permanently exists together in the divine presence. Zoroastrian paradise is not exclusive. It is just delayed for some. The most universalist afterlife in any tradition that still takes morality seriously. Judaism, the world to come. Jewish thought about paradise is ancient, varied, and in a pattern we've seen before, with Jewish eschatology more focused on the transformation of this world than the description of another. The Jewish concept of the afterlife paradise is called Olam Haba, the world to come, and it resists precise description more than almost any other tradition's heaven, for a specific theological reason. The rabbis were deeply suspicious of speculation about what they could not know. What they did agree on: the world to come is a state of existence in the presence of God. The Talmud famously says, "In the world to come, there is no eating, no drinking, no washing, no anointing, no marriage. But the righteous sit with their crowns on their heads and enjoy the radiance of the Shekinah, the divine presence." The crown is significant, not a symbol of authority, but of completion. The crown represents the full realization of a person's potential, the person they were capable of being, finally, completely actualized. There is also Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, which in Jewish tradition is not just the garden before the fall, but the paradisal realm where righteous souls reside. It has levels lower and upper, with deeper access to divine light at each level. The concept of Shabbat as a foretaste. Jewish mystical tradition contains a beautiful idea. Shabbat, the weekly day of rest, is called a foretaste of the world to come. 1/60th of paradise, experienced every week. The peace, the cessation of labor, the gathering of family, the presence of divine light, all of it a rehearsal. Heaven, in this understanding, is not entirely elsewhere. It visits once a week. Christianity, from the kingdom of God to the New Jerusalem. Christian heaven is simultaneously the most contested, most artistically depicted, and most theologically complex paradise in any living tradition. We covered the basics in our Christianity versus Islam heaven comparison video, but today we go wider and deeper. What the New Testament actually says. Jesus' primary description of heaven is the kingdom of God, and he describes it almost entirely through parables. A treasure hidden in a field, a pearl of great price, a wedding banquet, a mustard seed that grows into a great tree. These are not architectural blueprints. They are attempts to describe something that exceeds language by using language creatively. What Jesus says with more consistency, the kingdom of God is near. It is accessible now, not only after death. It belongs to the poor, the mourning, the meek, the persecuted. It is entered not through power, but through transformation, becoming like children, stripped of pretension and self-sufficiency. The Book of Revelation's New Jerusalem. The most physical description of Christian heaven comes from Revelation, and it is a city, not a garden. 12 gates of pearl, streets of gold, transparent as glass, walls of jasper, foundations adorned with 12 precious stones. A river of the water of life flowing from the throne of God. The tree of life bearing 12 fruits. No sun, because God is the light. No night, no temple, because God's presence fills everything, and no building can contain it. And no death, no grief, no crying, no pain. The first things have passed away. This is not a return to the Garden of Eden. It is something beyond it, a garden that has become a city, wild nature transformed into civilized beauty, all of human history's architecture and culture glorified and preserved. The Beatific Vision, the theological heart of Catholic and Orthodox Christian heaven, is the Beatific Vision, the direct, unmediated experience of God as God knows himself. Not seeing God from a distance, not understanding truths about God, but knowing God the way God knows himself, an intimacy so total that human language has no category for it. Thomas Aquinas described it as the intellect being elevated by divine light to comprehend the divine essence directly. It is the fulfillment of every desire, the answer to every question, the resolution of every grief. And it is not static, because God is infinite. The exploration never reaches an end. Heaven is not a destination you arrive at and sit. It is a journey that has just begun. C.S. Lewis, one of the most gifted describers of Christian heaven in modern literature, put it as further up and further in. The deeper you go, the more there is, always more. Protestant traditions, Reformed and evangelical Christianity emphasizes the relational dimension heaven as being with God, being with Christ, being with the community of all who loved God throughout history. The focus is less on the architecture and more on the reunion, the restoration of all that was lost, the healing of all that was broken. Islamic Jannah, the garden that surpasses all imagination. We covered Jannah in detail in our Christianity versus Islam comparison, but in the context of every tradition, its specificity becomes even more striking. Jannah, which means garden, is described across hundreds of verses in the Quran and thousands of hadith with a level of sensory detail that no other tradition matches. The structure, 8 gates, each corresponding to a different category of righteous deeds: prayer, fasting, charity, jihad in its fullest sense of striving and struggle, gratitude, the gate of those who controlled their anger, each gate wide enough, according to hadith, that the journey from one side to the other takes 70 years on horseback. The highest level Firdaus is directly beneath the throne of God. The experience, rivers of water that never grows stagnant, rivers of milk whose taste never changes, rivers of pure honey, trees of extraordinary size, one so vast that a rider could travel for 100 years in its shade and never reach its end, palaces of hollow pearl, garments of silk and brocade, vessels of silver and crystal, fruits that require no reaching, they lower themselves to you, and the body in Jannah, perfected. The Hadith describe residents of Jannah as the age of 33, the age of full human maturity, free from the decline of old age and the incompleteness of youth, the senses magnified, everything experienced more intensely, more completely than any earthly experience. The companions. The Quranic description of the Hur al-Ain, the companions of paradise, has generated more misunderstanding than almost any Islamic concept in Western discourse. the mainstream scholarly understanding, Jannah provides complete relational fulfillment, including the reunion of believing spouses who are described as being even more beautiful to each other in paradise than they were on earth. The Quran explicitly describes believing men and women being together in paradise. The ultimate reward. Above all of this, above the rivers and the palaces and the companions' Islamic theology, places one reward that makes everything else feel small. The ruya, the vision of God. Seeing God directly, the way you see the full moon, unmistakable, undeniable, real. The Prophet Muhammad said that when the people of paradise receive this vision, they forget every pleasure they experienced before it. Jannah is extraordinary. The vision of God makes Jannah itself feel like a waiting room. Hinduism, Svarga, Vaikuntha, and Moksha. Hinduism has not one heaven but many, and then, above all of them, something that isn't heaven at all. Svarga, the heaven of the god Indra, is the destination for those who have accumulated good karma through righteous deeds, generosity, and religious observance. It is a realm of extraordinary beauty and pleasure. Divine beings, celestial music, abundant food and drink, freedom from disease and aging. But Svarga has a crucial limitation. It is temporary. When your good karma is exhausted, when the merit that brought you there runs out, you return to earth, reborn at a level of existence commensurate with whatever remains of your karma. Svarga is not the final destination. It is an extraordinarily pleasant rest stop. Vaikuntha, the realm of Vishnu. For devoted worshippers of Vishnu, this is a higher destination, permanent, not temporary. The soul resides in the presence of Vishnu, in a realm of transcendent beauty, serving the god with love and devotion. This is the Vaishnava tradition's closest equivalent to the Abrahamic heaven, a personal paradise in the presence of a personal god. Similarly, Kailash, the realm of Shiva, is the destination for Shaivite devotees. Moksha, liberation. Above all the heavens is not another heaven. It is moksha, liberation from the cycle of rebirth entirely. Moksha is not a place. It is a state. The dissolution of the individual self, the Atman, into Brahman, the ultimate reality that underlies all existence, like a drop of water returning to the ocean. For those who find this concept terrifying, who hear dissolution of the self and think annihilation, Hindu philosophy offers a precise distinction. The self is not destroyed. It is revealed. What you thought was your individual self is recognized as always having been Brahman, the infinite, the ultimate, the real. What dissolves is the illusion of separation. What remains is everything. Moksha is not the best heaven. It is the end of the need for heaven. Buddhism, Nirvana, and the Pure Land. Buddhism, like Hinduism, offers both a heaven and something beyond heaven, the Pure Land. In Mahayana Buddhist traditions, particularly powerful in East Asia, there is a paradise called Sukhavati, the pure land of the Buddha, Amitabha. It is a realm of extraordinary beauty where conditions for achieving enlightenment are perfect. No suffering, no obstacles, no distraction. Beings who are reborn in the Pure Land through faith and practice are surrounded by the teachings of the Dharma. Constantly the birds sing it, the rivers murmur it, the flowers embody it. Enlightenment in this realm is not just possible, but inevitable. The Pure Land is not the final destination. It is the perfect training ground for the final destination. Nirvana, above and beyond all heavens, including the Pure Land, is Nirvana. Nirvana is not a place. It is the extinguishing of craving, aversion, and delusion, the three fires that keep the self in existence and in suffering. When those fires go out, what remains is not nothingness. What remains is reality as it actually is, without the distortion of ego. The Buddha refused to describe what nirvana is like after death, not because it was unknowable, but because the question itself was malformed. Asking, "What is nirvana like?" assumes there is a you there to experience it, and the entire point of nirvana is the recognition that the you was never what you thought it was. Buddhism's ultimate heaven is the heaven that has no description because it has no visitor. Norse, Celtic, and others, the heavens outside the mainstream. Norse Valhalla and folk Fang. We've covered these in the Afterlife and Death God videos, but in the context of heaven, what's striking is that the Norse paradise is explicitly not a rest. It is eternal preparation for the last battle. Heaven for the Norse warrior was a continuation of the life's work, fighting, feasting, and fighting again. No contemplation, no union with the divine, no dissolution of self, just the feast and the sword, and the company of the greatest fighters who ever lived. A heaven that honors exactly what Norse culture valued. Celtic Tir na Nog. The Celtic paradise is perhaps the most romantically human heaven in any tradition. Beautiful beyond description, eternal youth, no disease, no grief, no aging, music everywhere, the company of beautiful beings. And most distinctively, it can be reached by the living. You can sail there, you can be invited. The veil between the world and paradise is thin. The Celtic heaven is adjacent to this world, not above it. Slavic Viraj. Ancient Slavic tradition describes Viraj, a paradise in the warm south or across the sea, where souls go in winter like migrating birds. It is a land of eternal summer, abundance, and rest. The dead live there, and they can sometimes be heard in the sounds of birds returning in spring. The Slavic heaven is seasonal, migratory, and intimately connected to the cycles of the natural world. What every heaven has in common and what that tells us. 13 traditions, wildly different architectures. And beneath all of them, the same 4 promises. Promise 1, the end of suffering. Every heaven eliminates the specific suffering of its source culture. Egypt's heaven eliminates drought and labor. The Norse heaven eliminates defeat and purposelessness. Islam's Jannah eliminates thirst, heat, and scarcity. The Zoroastrian paradise eliminates the exhaustion of the cosmic war. Heaven is not an abstract ideal. It is the photographic negative of what each civilization most suffered. This doesn't make it false. It might make it more honest, the acknowledgement that paradise means different things to different people, because pain means different things to different people. Promise 2, reunion. Almost every tradition promises reunion with those you loved. The Egyptian dead recognized each other. Jannah reunites believing families. The Christian heaven preserves relationships transformed but real. The Jewish paradise is communal. The Norse feast in Valhalla is a feast with the greatest companions. The deepest human fear is not suffering. It is loss. The loss of the people who made your life meaningful. And almost every heaven answers that fear directly. They are there. You will find them. The love was real, and it is not over. Promise 3. The self-perfected heaven in every tradition is a version of you that is fully, finally, who you were supposed to be. The Egyptian Ak, the Christian resurrection body, the perfected form in Jannah, the actualized self in Olam Haba with its crown. Every tradition promises that what death strips away was not the real you. The real you is what remains, and it is better than what the world allowed you to be. Promise 4, God or something like it. Even traditions that describe the most physical, sensory paradises ultimately place the direct experience of the divine above all other joys. The Egyptian soul becomes one with Ra. Jannah's ultimate reward is the vision of God, the Christian Beatific Vision, the Jewish radiance of the Shekinah, the Hindu soul merging with Brahman. Every tradition that has thought most carefully about what heaven is for arrives at the same place. The greatest joy is not the pleasure or the reunion or the perfected self. It is the presence of whatever is most real. Whatever that is, every tradition agrees that being near it makes everything else feel like a shadow. 13 visions of paradise. Every one of them different. Every one of them human. Every one of them saying the same thing in the language of its people. This world is not the full story. Not because this world is bad, but but because every moment of beauty you've ever experienced, every flash of love or peace or wonder you've ever felt, that thing is pointing at something larger than itself. The Field of Reeds says, you deserve a world where things work. Elysium says, excellence has an eternal address. The House of Song says, your choices mattered cosmically. The world to come says, your potential will be finally, fully realized. The New Jerusalem says, everything broken will be restored. Jannah says, every longing you suppressed will be answered. Moksha says, the separation you always felt was the illusion you were home the whole time. None of these are provably true. All of them are recognizably, achingly human, and all of them begin from the same place. The stubborn, persistent, universal conviction that love is too real to simply stop. Here's what you walked away with today. Egypt's paradise looked exactly like Egypt, perfected. Greece's was exclusive, reserved for the heroic and the favored. Zoroastrianism's was the most universalist eventually. Everyone gets there. Judaism focused on presence, potential, and the radiance of the divine. Christianity's ultimate heaven is an infinite exploration of an infinite God. Islam's Jannah is the most physically detailed, and its ultimate reward is still the vision of God. Hinduism has heavens that are temporary rest stops, and then moksha, the dissolution of the need for heaven entirely. Buddhism offers the Pure Land as preparation, and Nirvana as the end of all seeking. Next video, Hell in Christianity versus Hell in Islam, the two traditions that have shaped Western and Eastern civilization's deepest fears about what waits for those who chose wrongly. Side by side, the way only this channel does it. Subscribe if you want to know. And the question for the comments, which heaven from any tradition sounds most like what you'd actually want, and why? See you on the other side.